In an Edmonton schoolyard, 10-year-old Giselle Lavallee is battling the dark side. She and her friends are shooting cards from the hottest movie in 1980, The Empire Strikes Back. Suddenly, they hear that a real-life action hero is just blocks away.
This kid came running so fast, it was almost as if bees were chasing him. He told us Wayne Gretzky was nearby signing autographs. We all jammed ourselves inside. I think I said hi and thanks. We were all kind of stunned. I couldn't believe I'd met my hockey hero.
And hockey needs a hero. A game of skill has degenerated into a wrestling match on ice. Canada has lost the Stanley Cup. It's lost the Canada Cup, and hockey has lost its luster. But the 80s will produce an age of heroes. A 12-year-old girl named Justine Blaney will put herself on the firing line to challenge the hockey establishment. Legends will arise as great rivalries once again seize the national imagination. But most of all, it is a resurrection. Not since the mythic times of Maurice Richard and Gordie Howe will there be such celebration. The greatest scoring genius of the game will restore Canada's dreams, only to have them dashed. This is the decade of hope and betrayal. In the early 1980s, Canadians are in a sour, cynical mood. A recession has ravaged the land. Interest rates soar to an unheard of 21%. Auctions are a common sight as thousands of Canadians lose their homes, farms, and businesses. Quebec is in the aftershock of a referendum on sovereignty. The West is seething from the hated national energy policy. And there is no joy on the rinks of the nation.
Out in front of the shot, they score! Larionov got that pass for the defense.
In 1981, the Soviets shock fans by winning the Canada Cup. It seems things can't get worse, but they do. At his trucking company in Winnipeg, George Smith watches the loss of the Canada Cup turn into an even bigger national embarrassment.
We watched the game here at work, and we saw Alan Eagleson and Pierre Elliott Trudeau present the Soviet captain with the Canada Cup. We thought, well, that's the end of it. Except that the following morning, there were these stories coming out about Eagleson refusing to let the Soviets take the cup home. And I thought, oh, this is one hell of a mess.
Canada Cup organizer Alan Eagleson had called in 6 policemen to block the Soviet team from taking the trophy home.
This belongs to the federal government. It's not going out of here, period.
I think it was a cheap move from Mr. Eagleson not to give them the cup. They won it and they deserved it. You know, they showed in 1981 that they were the best on the ice.
In Winnipeg, George Smith decides to teach Alan Eagleson a lesson in sportsmanship. He asks Canadians to donate $1 each to pay for a replica of the cup to present to the Soviets.
Everybody wanted to be part of the picture. We ended up with $32,000. That's quite a lot of $1 bills. The letters came from everywhere in Canada. There was even a letter that came from New York City.
Smith's cup is barely out of the mold at the foundry when Eagleson tries to stop it. There's threatening talk of lawsuits. Smith even receives a visit from the RCMP. Finally, he calls an old buddy and fellow Manitoban, Governor General Ed Schreier, the official custodian of the Canada Cup.
So, I called Eddie and said, "Look, what's with this nonsense?" And Eddie said, "It's nothing. Neither of you have the real trophy. I'm the only one who has it, and it's still in my office." Well, the Mounties backed off, Hockey Canada backed off, and everything went peaches and cream after that.
Let's put our hands on it. Whoa!
Soviet diplomats accept the newly minted People's Trophy on an autumn afternoon in 1981. They call it a truly noble act by Canadian hockey fans. That gesture is not the only positive salvaged from the Canada Cup loss.
To Gretzky. Gretzky coming right. A shot, he scores! Gretzky!
Even in defeat, Wayne Gretzky confirms what many already suspect. He is the great hope the country has been waiting for. Wayne Gretzky is part of the Canadian Family Album. From the age of 2, every aspect of his life is exposed and scrutinized. When Peter Zosky interviews him in 1973, he's just 13 years old, but already a national celebrity.
Have you ever been hurt, Wayne?
Yes, I had my 3 front teeth knocked out in a game.
Were those baby teeth or
No, seconds.
already the mark of a seasoned hockey player, eh?
He's perfect. A family boy, polite, clean-cut, classic Canadiana.
My last 6 or 7 years, I've always had a lot of attention through minor hockey and that. And I don't find it any different than it has been before. There's a little more publicity. And I just try to take it in stride. I don't try to fight it, and it works out well.
Wayne, anyway, was the answer to whatever it was that people had on their brain about deteriorating Canadian skill level. He was the messiah. This guy came in and showed that he could stick handle and pass with the best, and in fact, better than any of them. So he gave us a great sense of, oh, good, whew, he's from Canada, we're okay.
By the time he makes it to the NHL, Gretzky is a virtuoso, the Mozart of the game.
He happened to be the man whose intelligence, if I could use the term from physics, vibrated at exactly the speed of a hockey game, which is why he could play it. It was like an instrument. He seems to do nothing. He seems to vanish. Right? This is what they all say. He vanishes. But he just goes in the peripheral vision of other people. He just goes where the game is going to go.
Well, watching him from the press box, it reminded me of the old Rudyard Kipling story where a cobra has a guy cornered, and the cobra says, "If you move, I strike, and if you don't move, I strike." And that was Gretzky. You were dead no matter what you did.
He's got it to Gretzky. He's got the open net. Gretzky, will he shoot? He does. He scores! He has broken the record. Gretzky has done the unbelievable.
Barely out of his teens, Gretzky scores 50 goals in just 39 games, a feat still unsurpassed. He's just 21 when he racks up 200 points in a single season. Richard's records, Esposito's, Orr's, Howe's, all are shattered one after another.
Gretzky Gretzky looking, twisting, turning, scoring!
Gretzky comes along and has an original way of playing a game that's been around forever. Does things that you're not supposed to be able to do. He's a physically underwhelming guy. He's very ordinary, which is part of the charm is that he's not a Superman. He looks like you and me, sorta. But he had this great original brain. He's a one-off.
Trophy after trophy, Gretzky's name is on it. In 1979, his name is also on the longest contract in NHL history. A 21-year deal with Edmonton Oilers owner Peter Pocklington. Gretzky is so valuable, he skates with his own bodyguard, a tough guy named Dave Semenko.
Shove it down.
Players knew that if you ran Gretzky, you'd answer to Semenko. So there was a built-in safeguard. You know, if you were feeling suicidal, go ahead, take a run at Gretzky. But Semenko was going to get you. Maybe not tonight, but before the season was out, one way or another, in the parking lot if he had to.
Off the ice, Gretzky is mobbed wherever he goes. Hockey's years in the wilderness are over. The national dream has been restored to the faithful.
Oh my God!
Gretzky is a marketer's dream. His face is everywhere, selling hockey sticks, soft drinks, jeans. In any language, Gretzky spells money. The Gretzky effect triggers a national resurgence in hockey. In remote Milltown, Newfoundland, people have been skating outdoors for 100 years. But now, Gretzky fever has blown in, and these future number 99s need their own ice palace. The local school teacher, Jack Harrington, spearheads a community rink raising, and Greenwood Gardens is born.
The kids worship Gretzky. When we were growing up in the 50s and 60s, we wanted a Canadiens jersey, but in the 80s, it was Gretzky, Gretzky, Gretzky. They would try to skate around the ice very similar to the way Wayne skated. It wasn't just in our community. It was throughout Newfoundland, throughout Canada, and throughout North America and the world.
In Giselle Lavalle's world, she need only look out her window to see the Great One's Edmonton apartment. He'll never know it, but he's become a touchstone for her. Life's been turbulent for this young Aboriginal girl. Family difficulties, lots of moves. Since getting his autograph, she's made Wayne Gretzky her inspiration.
October 20th. The Great One came through in a dramatic way. Gretzky was mobbed by his teammates. It was great.
Armed with a cheap stick from Woolco, Giselle endures the taunts and teasing of her teammates to play street hockey, Gretzky style.
I'm the only girl playing street hockey in a neighborhood of boys. I tried to emulate Wayne's style of hockey. Unselfish and smart, a real team player with a strong work ethic and a lot of passion.
Everyone in Edmonton has lived through a few hard years, but the recession is lifting. Now, Giselle Lavalle and the whole city will be swept along in one of hockey's most glorious decades. To be a member of the Rascals hockey team, there are two prerequisites. Play hard, party harder. Jay Peacock and his fellow meatpacking teammates at the Gainers plant in Edmonton are devoted to both causes. They love the game, they love their fun, and in 1984, they love their Oilers. Like everyone in Edmonton, they're riding the wave of a dynasty in the making.
Yeah, the city was rocking when the Oilers were rolling. Everything stopped for those games. Local hockey tournaments were canceled, meetings were called off so people could watch the Oilers play. And the city exploded when they won the Stanley Cup.
I don't think there's any feeling ever like it. I mean, it was the greatest feeling I've ever had in hockey. So the only thing that I can compare it to would be the moment that your child is born. It's something you hold on to forever. It's a love that never goes away. It's love forever. And when you win that Stanley Cup the first time, it's a love that never goes away.
Peacock's boss is the brash millionaire, Peter Pocklington. In 1977, he sold a vintage Rolls-Royce, his wife's 12-carat diamond ring, and a Renoir to buy a hockey team.
I've always believed in going after mountains, and after climbing to the top of one, I see one that's bigger. So anything is possible to a man who believes, and I believe.
Peter was the perfect guy for Alberta, especially in that moment. The kind of gung-ho, independent entrepreneur. Well, sort of independent. He wasn't quite as independent as he made out. But the idea that I'm a businessman and I'm doing this on my own and I'm gonna carve this thing out of this city and I'm gonna make this franchise work and we're gonna win Stanley Cups here in Edmonton, and isn't that great? That was the perfect Alberta thing, the kind of Alberta in your face to everybody else.
Jay Peacock spends his days toiling on the kill floor at Gainers, one of Pocklington's enterprises. It's hard, brutal work, but occasionally there are perks. When the Oilers win the Stanley Cup, Pocklington delivers it to the Gainers' lunchroom.
My buddy got his picture taken. It was an amazing experience. Nobody ever dared dream they would see the Stanley Cup in their lifetime.
Just 5 years after joining the NHL, the Edmonton Oilers establish themselves as a team for the ages. Gretzky anchors one of the most dynamic squads in hockey history. Mark Messier, Paul Coffey, Yari Curry, all future Hall of Famers who weave pure magic on the ice. They rule the sports press. Films are made about them. Their stories fill a dozen books. They are the century's last great dynasty. But Edmonton has another team destined for greatness and is one of the most remarkable stories in Canadian women's hockey. Shirley Cameron is a farm girl from Bonnyville, Alberta, who's got big dreams. She's determined to be a hockey player, and more than that, to be one of the best in Canada.
My parents didn't think women's hockey existed, and they thought it was a childish fantasy. But that didn't stop me. We played in this small area in between the 3 farms where the 3 Cameron families lived. And we would gather all the time at the slough, and we would play hockey every single night in the winter, and on Saturdays and Sundays.
By the time she's 21, she finds that others share the same dream.
The women that came out, there was everybody from very young to older ladies. Some had figure skates, some had equipment, some had none. We basically spent the first year just learning how to play.
The Edmonton Chimos may have had a ragged start, but they catch on fast. They're tough and they're quick. And by 1975, they're the best in Alberta women's hockey. Shirley Cameron is the pint-sized dynamo who rules the rink as their captain.
We ran out of women's teams who we could compete against, so we had to play against men's old-timers teams. People came out to see us. They cheered for us over them. It was great fun, but it wasn't enough.
Cameron gets a job as a postal worker, and at the age of 29, wonders if she'll ever get the chance to play against the best in women's hockey. Then, in 1982, the opportunity she's been waiting for, the first ever Women's National Championship. The tournament is in Brantford, Ontario, the home of Wayne Gretzky, and Shirley Cameron is desperate to go with the Edmonton Chimos.
My bosses weren't keen on giving me the time off, so I called in sick. If any of my male colleagues were playing in a national championship, it would have been a huge deal. Sure, I may not have a job when I get back, but this was too important to pass up.
It's history in the making, the birth of national women's hockey in Canada. Shirley Cameron and the Edmonton Chimos make it to the finals. But the day before the big game, a reporter asks her name for a story he's writing.
I said to the reporter, "Well, I'll tell you anything you want to know about our team, but please don't write my name." And he asked me why, and I explained to him. And he made a headline out of that in the newspaper the next day.
Cameron goes into the championship game knowing hockey may have cost her her job. The Chimos lose to Ontario in overtime. Worse yet, Cameron is suspended by Canada Post. But national women's hockey is here to stay. And Shirley Cameron will be back. 2 years later, she leads the Edmonton Chimos to victory in the championship.
There was no stopping you this time?
Not this time, no. We weren't going to be running us up again, no way.
Cameron is the series' top scorer and its most valuable player. And this time, Canada Post gives her the time off. As player and then coach, she'll take the Chimos to the national championship an astonishing 16 times. Her contributions as a player and a mentor to the future stars of the game are legendary. In the story of women's hockey, Shirley Cameron is one of the pioneers. In the 1980s, television feasts on hockey.
NHL tonight.
It's the era of the big mouth pundits and hockey soap operas in prime time. Historic rivalries are matched by fierce new ones, fought out on Saturday night television. In the West, the Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers divide the province as they battle for the hearts of Albertans. But the most legendary feud of the decade pits Montreal against Quebec City.
Spare goaltenders, everybody's on there now, and the melee starts.
Whenever the Canadians and the Quebec Nordiques play, it's war on ice.
Well, Chuck, and there's a pileup down there that's dangerous.
Good Friday, 1984. Quebec's two beloved teams are in a no-holds-barred fight.
There they go again. Going at it over there. Somebody's hurt down there now.
The game is suspended, and everyone's sent off to cool down. Then,
This is bad blood. Oh, here she goes again.
the brawl goes on for an hour. 198 penalty minutes are handed out, and 10 players are thrown out of the game. It's remembered as the Good Friday Massacre.
But it was crazy series against the Nordiques. Every game that we play against them was like going to war. You know, you didn't want to go to. You don't want to go to war. You know, but you had no choice.
That's for the Nordics.
In a province that considers hockey a religion, the rivalry has shades of David and Goliath.
The Canadians have their backs against the wall now.
The Montreal Canadiens had just won 6 Stanley Cups in the 1970s. They'd been the league's dominant team, led by its biggest star, Guy Lafleur. The Quebec Nordique, by comparison, are mere upstarts, but they're brash and confident, and they seem to embody the new mood in Quebec. It's no accident that their colors are the blue and white of the Quebec flag, and their uniform boasts the fleur-de-lis. The rivalry becomes as much about politics as it is about hockey.
For a lot of the supporters of the Nordiques, that team became embedded not only in terms of sort of vaguely race and culture, but politically with that mission of an independent Quebec, an independent French-speaking team. And so the Montreal Canadiens didn't become fully the English-speaking team, but the other, not completely the other, but sort of the other for a while.
Even innocent beer drinkers best choose their brand with care. Molson owns the Canadiens, and O'Keefe owns the Nordique. Everyone's taking sides, and poor Carl McNeil is stuck in the wrong place at the wrong time. McNeil is no ordinary Montreal Canadiens fan. His home is a shrine to the team both inside and out. The trouble is, McNeil lives in Quebec City, where a Habs sweater is an invitation to fight.
There was a lot of tension in my family. My father was a Nordiques fan, so we couldn't talk about hockey. Oh dear God, there was quite a commotion when I said that I wouldn't set foot in the Colisée, that hen house. That wasn't well received.
Hockey mania in the province goes from kitchen arguments to living room melodrama. The hottest TV show in Quebec is a soap opera about a Quebec hockey team, which looks suspiciously like the Nordiques. It's written by hard-bitten sports reporter Régent Tremblay, and it has all the ingredients for a hit. Sex, booze, violence. And of course, ice. Lance et compte. He shoots, he scores. Has Quebecers mesmerized.
The guys would turn on the TVs in their locker room to follow Lance et compte before jumping on the ice for their garage league. Shopping centers, in order not to lose business, would organize special spots to watch the show.
In English Canada, hockey and television produce a different phenomenon. A one-man melodrama with opinions as outrageous as his wardrobe.
It's easy for you out there to sit there, isn't this ugly or something? You're not out there getting bashed around.
Don Cherry talks hockey with the passion and fire of a Baptist preacher. A journeyman who slogged it out in the minors for years, his NHL playing career started and ended with just one game. As a coach, he was revered and reviled. Cherry took it all in stride.
In the 76 NHL awards, when Don Cherry won for Coach of the Year, I mean, imagine the audacity of this guy. He gets up and he says, well, in the history of the Coach of the Year, there have been many winners, many great people have laid claim to this award, but I have to say, none of them more deserving than me. And that's Don, you know, and he's just having fun. And that's hockey. He's so full of that locker room mischief.
In the early 1980s, Don Cherry reinvents himself with a little television segment on CBC.
Welcome to Coach's Corner. I think you're really going to enjoy this. You're going to wear those tin hats.
Whether it's European players or face masks or tough guys, no subject is off limits.
He's a mean, tough hockey player. I like him. They're playing like pussies, and nobody's afraid of going in Philadelphia anymore.
You've been great tonight. You really have.
I know.
You want to see the replay?
Yeah, let's see it.
People look for the outrageousness, look for the acting, kind of laugh at him, and are comforted in the fact that they don't believe the things Don does. But they still watch him. And then I think for other people, and maybe it's the majority, I think Don is a very comforting guy to watch because they do believe what he says, and he's reassuring.
Don Cherry and television make a perfect fit. Like hockey, it's part sport, part entertainment. Saturday night will never be quite the same. A year after meeting her hockey hero, Wayne Gretzky, Giselle Lavallee moves to Sault Ste. Marie. The first thing she does is sign up for power skating class. No girl in the association's 50-year history has ever tried it before. She takes to the ice on skates 2 sizes too big.
Sure, the boys teased me, but I didn't care. Out of 24, only 2 of us passed all the tests. My coach asked me what I was going to do, and I replied, play hockey.
Giselle's personal battle for hockey equality is mirrored in leagues and rinks around the country. Women are pushing harder than ever to shatter the barriers, and none harder than a young girl from Ontario. Justine Blaney takes ballet, gymnastics, and figure skating lessons. But what she really wants to do is play hockey like her brother. And to improve her game, she wants to play with the boys. When she's told it's forbidden by the league, a frustrated little girl pours out her feelings to the city's newspapers.
Tryout time is here again, and I'm gonna hear the same words again. Yes, you're good enough. We wish we could use you, but you're a girl. I have important reasons to want to play in the boys' hockey league. Girls' hockey offers only 2 levels of play. The boys have 5. I want to play more games at the highest level of competition. Is there an individual or a group that can help me?
Help arrives in the form of the new Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Even the boys support her. But when Justine and her family go to court, they lose the first round.
Very upset, and I'm very sorry for my team when they have to look for a new defenseman.
Justine goes back to playing with the girls. But things are different now. She's made enemies of some of the most powerful figures in women's hockey. They're afraid that girls' teams will begin to crumble if the best players move to boys' teams. Justine is now a pariah.
My teammates wouldn't speak to me. I would be on the bench and coaches would talk about me and how I was ruining women's hockey, not realizing I was right beneath them. And then players wouldn't even sit beside me on the bench. We'd go to tournaments and they would all go out bowling and not take me. It was a very difficult time. I was a very sad teenager.
She fight for her spot. She fight for the place that she wanted to have as a hockey player at the level of hockey that she was able to play. And by doing that, of course, I mean, you get out of a lot of people's comfort zone, and most people are afraid to get out of their comfort zone.
Her troubles continue at school. Rumors start to circulate.
Every one of my friends were seeing me on TV, and all of a sudden they're saying, "Who do you think you are? You're some kind of hotshot." I was told I was gay, I was sleeping my way to the top, I'd never get married, and I'd never have kids.
Despite the hate mail, despite the threats, Justine sticks to her guns. And when her case is heard in the Supreme Court, Canada's top judges rule in her favor. But it will take another year and a half before the Ontario Hockey Association finally caves in. Even then, Justine faces one final hurdle.
She wins this case eventually in '87, and she phones the coach, "Hey, good news, I'm in." He says, "No, sorry, we filled the last card last night." And she told the story to her brother, and brother phones the coach and says, "Well, listen, you saying that you signed a guy last night, but if there was another card available, would you sign Justine?" "Oh, of course, if we'd had another card, sure." He says, "Well, I'm quitting." And so the coach had to put Justine in.
In January 1988, 3 years after starting her legal battle, Justine finally laces up with the boys. But in a teen's life, 3 years might as well be 30. The tougher, faster boys' game has passed her by, and Justine soon quits the team. But she will continue to play and to inspire.
When little girls today come up to me and say, "You know what? I'm playing boys hockey. Thanks." That really makes a difference. It helps lighten those years of discomfort.
That one's yours.
In the summer of 1988, Canadians are anticipating one of the biggest events of the year. It doesn't involve skates, sticks, or Stanley Cups. Instead, they're getting ready to watch an American actress marry Canada's greatest hockey player. It's the next best thing to a royal wedding. That spring, the Edmonton Oilers had won their 4th Stanley Cup. But there are signs the dynasty is crumbling. Players are disgruntled. Some want to be traded. Even Wayne Gretzky is hearing rumors. Rumors fueled by the growing financial woes of Peter Pocklington. Everything is going sour for the man who'd brought NHL hockey to Edmonton. Bad investments leave him in a sea of red ink. To make matters worse, a 6-month strike at his Gainer's meatpacking plant ends in broken heads and a bitter union. For meatpackers like Jay Peacock, Pocklington's promises have gone rancid.
Yeah, I got arrested 4 times. 3 times the first day and once on the second.
With his popularity dissolving and his debts mounting, Pocklington quietly looks at ways of unloading his possessions, including the jewel of his empire.
We just won the Stanley Cup, and I got people saying to me, you know, you might be traded. So you get defensive, you know? And so that's what it really came down to. Peter and I came to a business disagreement mid-July probably, and I knew I was probably going to be traded at that point.
Throughout the summer, Pocklington secretly peddles his prize to interested buyers. Word doesn't get out because Canadians are distracted by talk of free trade with the U.S. and a fairy tale wedding. Nearly 10,000 people crowd Edmonton's Jasper Avenue on a hot July day to see the marriage of Wayne Gretzky and actress Janet Jones. Hockey weds Hollywood. The city goes all out. Guests include celebrities, teammates, and politicians. Behind the smiles, however, a tense drama is unfolding. Knowing his days in Edmonton are numbered, Gretzky's only play is to decide where he goes. On August 9th, 1988, the country is stunned by the news.
Your move to LA will not only be a tremendous boost to hockey in that city, but in the entire United States.
But as I said, there comes a time when
For Giselle Lavallee, like millions of Canadians, the sale of the Great One is a bombshell.
My jaw dropped to the floor. I still can't believe it. I grew up with him and now he's gone.
When Gretzky was sold to the Los Angeles Kings by Peter Pocklington, obviously the initial reaction was, there goes our birthright, there goes our genius from Brantford, Ontario, from a great hockey town being sold to Hollywood. What a terrible thing. Gretzky going to Los Angeles created the illusion that hockey was portable, that you could take hockey anywhere and sell it, that it didn't have to have any roots, that you could sell it to people who had never seen ice, who had never played the game, and who had no connection and didn't know who Foster Hewitt was.
Hockey is about to go in new directions. Giselle Lavalle will also move on. She'll be the first in her family to go to university, graduating with a master's degree. Her work will take her to Saskatchewan, fighting for First Nations justice. And she'll work with Aboriginal kids playing the game, Gretzky style.
I love hockey. I love playing it. I've always said I'd keep playing until I was a grandmother or my knees gave out. It's the human struggle at the most primal level. There's someone in your way trying to stop you from literally achieving your goal, the net. That sense of determination to overcome those who stand in your way, that became my template in life.
That determination pays off one more time. The autograph she got as a child disappeared long ago, but another opportunity presents itself at Gretzky's restaurant in Toronto.
I got excited because I saw he was there. His people tried to cut off the lineup for autographs a couple of times, but I didn't move, and neither did the others ahead of me.
Moments later, she is face to face with her hero. He signs the hat she has in her hands. Then, like an apparition, he is gone.